Shirley here with Jupiter Point of Dallas, and this is um, a Jupiter night with Mars. Our Jupiter is close to the midheaven, 11 degree Gemini, and the ascendant and midheaven is ruled by Mercury, which is conjuncting the Sun. 18 degrees is prominent, and Saturn in 80 degrees. Mars on the minute is trining Saturn from 18 degrees, and the moon is applying to that Mars. Um, so this is a vlog, and I began to read a Dutch book that tends to basically it's a story about a father and a son that write a diary log of just day-to-day things, tending to cold cases, tending to big cases against drug lords and so on. And eventually the father was assassinated, and the son published the book. And it's called I Promise You I Will Be 100 Years Old, but it's in Dutch. So I don't know if there's English translation yet, by Royce de Vries and Peter R. de Vries. And one of the cases that it sends you back to cases. So I looked at one of the cases, and that had to do with the case was of Nikki Verstappen, and that had to do with a child that goes on a summer camp. And I think at night it was, they go to the bathroom and they disappear, and then they find the body of the child, and it's the child was murdered, and it's uncertain. It looks like they were raped as well. And years later, they would find that there was various DNAs on the child's underwears. Um, this whole thing happens in a small town named Hillblown, and I always look at, the most informative is the comments, because the episode, however much you edit, and it's TV, and you can barely say a thing with this MK Ultra controlled media, um, and um, and you saw, I saw Peter himself looking, with his hand covering his face. It's like there's so much more that he wants to tell, but he cannot. He has to hide it, and it's kind of like, um, and even when you write a book, okay, it's even then. So that pinpointed the situation where there's a small town, a child disappears, and everybody knows there is satanic ritual abuse going on, but nobody can talk about this. And everybody knows that that's the case, but nobody can talk about this. And then they catch somebody. Okay, they catch somebody, and then it's always going to be phrased as that was, solitary pedo or a solitary murderer, or whatnot. And like everybody knows. And in the comments, you see some comments is like, yeah, that person, that the person that run the camp, and that and that and that. But it's like everybody knows there's satanic ritual abuse going on in your town, and nobody does something about that. And so um, this is this is a community type of question that I think Pluto and Aquarius is bringing into question, and it's happening with Mercury, this ruling children, conjuncting Sun. And so with Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn, we began to look at our leaders and at people that had authority and began to question authority, which is not bad. But with Aquarius, it's kind of like there's the power of community around that. And there is the question of community that's going around the charismatic leader. That's more Capricorn. Here we're talking about a camp, a cooperative place, a more something supposed to be more decentralized. By the way, a lot of the satanic abuse that's going on, according to testimony of Trudy Verstegen and Lars, was at the Rabobank, which is a cooperative structure. That was my ending of Pluto Capricorn when I was like, we need to decentralize, 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 decentralize. The Rabobank is a cooperative. Okay, and I learned about what was going on in structures like kibbutz or moshav, structures that inspired, by the way, settlements also in Netherlands, or were inspired by. I don't know, like I don't know enough about that. But the thing is that it's one of the cases that catch up to you. I have the thing is, I blame social engineering around um, um, around the thing, and they may have given me a birth chart. And the thing is that, how should I say it? There are cases that you stay with. It's not that it doesn't happen in every other town. And of course, when you see that on TV, or the case being mentioned, um, then then you think about it, and you find how, to many of us, the problems that we tend to are problems where there's a community where that much horrible stuff can happen, and and then you ask yourself, okay, how to get out, where to get out to. And remember that the children that they never came to save are, our leaders. um, and that to get certification for pretty much everything, or to get a job, or to maintain even a YouTube channel, okay, you need to comply with things that are antithetical to the type of success that leaves you sleeping good at night and excited about your day. So if you don't make something of yourself, then your light is dim. But if you have to go through the hoops of, okay, and the freeze, they tend to more than the 99% of Dutch people tend to. So it's not about any, it's about um, it's about the fact that literally, to make something of yourself, the amount of sacrifice of that which makes you alive, which is your truth, that people have to make. And then there's attempt to go to the city, but then within the city, um, you know, it's still the same. It's not the same as a small town, but it's the fact that there is a global issue of something. And I want to talk about Sedna, because at the time when that kid died, 1997, 1998, I cannot, like, he died. He was born, I think, 2 years before Kelly and Royce. Nicky Verstappen was born. My God. And the name of the father is Pietje. Um, yeah. So that's something I can't. Before I was going to try and purchase the book, and my phone was confiscated, and this and that, and then my Instagram was reported by human traffickers, like really dumb fuckery that I cannot even begin to assess. Um, and family got canceled, and the book was this was self like so many things around this. And then one sudden night I woke up and there was astral rape all over, and then it stopped, and I had to read the book. It was so weird. Like they're so weird. Occult is a weird practice. Okay? Then I woke up thinking about that, and then again I had like so weird, so many weird things. Um, but this is a part of what happens with these practices, with these weird practices, and anybody that tends to such cases, even if by proxy, definitely if they're high profile enough to tend to that on the media, then there's just a lot of things. But it's also the case that when people don't make something of themselves or they don't shine, then they're not, like it's a person you can't leave around. And when they do shine, then immediately there are the attempts to confiscate that shine. Um, and when I think about that time, Sedna was in the middle phase, I think, of Taurus. And that's a Mercury ruled phase, depending on how you count the phases, and that also to do with children. I want to turn to a page about Sedna. And this is a discussion about Sedna and Chiron, because Sedna was conjunct in Chiron 1977, 1978, and will conjunct Chiron 1935. I have Sedna now it's retrograde, but it's applying to conjunct my Chiron when it turns direct. And that was the fall of many things, like something that is overwhelming for me, especially because I've been through transits. So, but what she talks about Sedna, first of all. Um, let's see it. Mother of the deep, ruler of Adivun. So Sedna is a rebellious daughter who rejects suitors and refuses to marry. And this is something where the Sedna story is about a girl that doesn't want to marry a man that she's not attracted to. Okay, this is the beginning of discussion of sexuality, eroticism, and the notion that eroticism is way more complicated. It's not about I'm doing these nice things and so she must accept me. There is the awakening of sexuality that is more intricate. In India, there are they look at the moon and the moon nakshatra to see for the compatibility of yoni and lingam. And by the way, I didn't know that. There was a course that I still want to purchase by Lada Duncheva about the moon nakshatra and compatibility of the moon. And naively, I look at the compatibility of moon, my moon, and then just another chart. And then I see that it's to do with the shape of that. I'm like, I didn't think about that. So I still remember that. To anybody thinking himself, what chart? And I will quote Biden, don't. So don't ask questions you don't want the answer to, or you can't handle the answer to. Um, but the thing is that with Sedna, there was this notion of it. With the Inuit, they say women were treated as equal, but they were not. And I like it that she says that. Okay? Because women could not decide anything about their lives back then. And so it's true that men had to make sure woman is sexually pleased if they went to hunting. So, but the woman could not decide what she wants, when she wants to have children, and so on and so forth. And that is that breeds colonialism, that breeds the highest suicide rates to this day, that breeds incest, that breeds many things. Okay, it's a lack of balance of yin and yang, just like excessively matriarchal societies were all emasculating men. This is also this is causing the same damage for the other direction. And so one version is to spite her father, she marries a dog and has a family with a dog, which pisses her dad off. Other versions, the dog marriage is actually the punishment for her. The father says, "You don't want anyone? Go marry a dog," and then she just says, "Well, I'm happy with the dog." Actually, this dog is better than all the men you wanted to put as supervisors on me. Um, and so, but the notion of Sedna is a very sad story because eventually the father kills her. And then shamans have to appease Sedna in order to eat. But nobody changes the godforsaken fact that we need a more balance between the women and men, and willing consent and eroticism is way more intricate than we think. As an astrologer, I run into it all the time. Um, there is the astrology is Uranus is also life energy. It's also if you're not expressing your truth, you will encounter people that trigger you to express your truth or to encounter your truth as well. That happened to me, and that's very, very, very exciting. But it can also be very frustrating. And going back to the Sedna story is where basically the tribe or the village or the town betrayed Sedna, and it was on a sexual background. And if I think about Sedna being in the middle phase of Taurus at the time of the Nikki Verstappen case, I can always bring my unique point of view, which is astrology. Um, and I think about a community, a village, and I think about the fact that that's this big secret. It's a giant secret. A child was ritually abused, raped, and murdered. And then they call on the journalist that tends to these cases, and he accompanies the family. And the journalist was not just doing films, and people were um, like the coverage was a cult show, so it was controversial. Okay, um, but aside of that, he would accompany these families for years, and and by that, it's not only like the child is lost, the family is at loss. A person comes to look at the case, they can't fucking do anything. Everybody knows there's satanic ritual abuse in your entire village. Okay, then all he can do is like, who killed who, this, who that, maybe you found this, maybe you found that, stand there with the with his with the face palm and not be able to say anything. um and that's that Sedna story. And then people say, I wouldn't grow my children in this town. It's in your city, it's in your. A while ago when I was still twittering, that I said, there's a politician in Netherlands that talks about the culture. And I said, it's in our culture and it's our bedrooms. It's in our culture and it's in our bedrooms. Funnily enough, for the cat that I named, for the way that I named before, I knew that that was the nickname of that politician. He was they slaughtered that cat in my bedroom, and they made the heart shape of the blood of the cat. I fled where I lived. Okay, so um, what I was, what accompanied me today was that fact that this generation of communities, and another ouchy point I was reading about There was a short about the children of the 60s, which prolonged to the 70s, where the parents would say, "You cry, let me give you something to cry about," and that was the generation of when the MK Ultra discovered that they can do it with children, and those children now are our leaders. Those that nobody came to save, and those that somebody managed to save, you would hear them as satanic ritual abuse survivors. And then there's the common people that grew up into a reality where even if, in the best of cases, a child would cry and the parent would say, "Let me give you something to cry about." So, Sedna conjuncted Chiron is 1977, 1978. Okay, but it wasn't. But in the 60s we had a Pluto-Uranus conjunction. This attempt to control the nervous system of children by using power and unfortunately rape and electrocution. Um, those things are something that still challenges our society today. And as an astrologer, okay, looking at relations, when you think about the familial unit, there is a lot of shaking up of the familial unit, both by social engineering, but also our souls attempt to break free from that programming. And it's going all the way back to the Inuit. It's going all the way back to the Inuit. The Sedna, while Pluto is still in and about trying in Sedna, I think it's important to say as much about this as we can say, because um, and I can tell you that the town I fled was such town that there's such ritual abuse taking place. But it's not just there. It's not just there. It can't be that I drive all the way to the north and go by train and I see on the walls still ultra this, ultra that, maternal care, ultra care, cell phone, ultra this, ultra that. Okay. Um, and this is something where you can't escape it. And I have to say that I've been in situation towards Pluto at the end of my 11th where I began to be isolated, 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 isolated. Then communication began to be with the type of figures that I would never get to meet day to day. Okay, that happened to me in high school when I was doing a fraction of a bit of a high school journalism, and they brought in the who and who's. Um, but this time the who and who is the who and who. Okay. And when you attempted channeling and you studied politics and science and you did essays on ESP, then you targeted individual, but there are also attempts to, you know, there are attempts to get your attention, um, or to show that you can control things behind the scene or whatever. I didn't go to that road, so um, and I tell you, don't. Okay, it's there's torture there. There's but at the same time, to make something of yourself, you gotta guard your truth, and we can grow and change our truth, absolutely. Um, but this is not by torture. The violence doesn't kill truth. It creates an undertone that in Neptune time or for Pluto changes signs, okay, the um, things begin to be, people begin to take the power back, and so even when it comes to ourselves, okay, sometimes we cannot deal with something anymore. And then it comes a time where we go back to it and we deal with that. I was just thinking about I have Karen in the fourth house and the real estate, and I've gotten to know some lawyers in my life, and one of the things that I said to younger people is like you wanted to see what you were avoiding in your Saturn return, or what you were avoiding in your 30s, sometimes in your 20s, because in your 40s you're gonna have your Pluto square, and then Neptune square. I'm getting ready for my Neptune square, and there's certain things that it's not about you can't avoid. It's like when you are ready to tend to that, you're gonna tend to that. Um, Real estate for me has been a story, and this is all a part of that. I tended to that at work, and at year 40, I tended to that at real estate. So, if I tell my story, basically, my parents divorced, and I was left with one of the parents, and this was with the house, and over the other parent, they had to return to their own country, so I couldn't. Okay, the child is staying in the country, and that at the time the mother was from Israel, um, and so that was the situation. Later, we would have to sell that apartment. Later, we would live 3 generations with my grandma. And later, there would be enough money for housing, but I would not have a job in that area. Later, there will no longer be enough money for housing. Later, there will be the house flippers. So it's like it's not only my problem. Later, it would be 2008, and I would see the scams, the Section 8 scams, and it's a scam. It's not housing first. Housing first is independent of ability to work for indefinite time and to believe the patient. If US did that, MK Ultra goes down, 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 down. Okay, but that's up to Americans. And I do know what happens for for the fraction of a bit, and it's given China. It's given. Why do Chinese people escape to America? The dead vans. That's why I love Gen Zers. Gen Zers are like, yeah, I know. But my friend, they were this person was kidnapped to hospital. This person, this is the ghetto inside the city. There's that. They don't fool around. They know these things. But you don't have to go through the hoops of, are you sure? Do you take your pills? Are you diagnosed with anything? Okay, of all the gaslighting that the people that are in these cults do. That's basically what's up. But at the same time, I can tell you that, you know, there's one thing to give up your truth in the sense, to give up your truth to be in the sense of, if you don't like my opinions, I have other opinions, okay? But it's another thing um, where that's taken to a point of cases like Nikki Verstappen. And that's the tenderest of cases. And it's not tender at all. And this is something where it's going back to the Sedna story as the question, why did Sedna not find anybody suitable? Because all of them were contending with that. How can you, if that man is in a power position, so he had to do all that, okay, and the part of the breaking away or breaking free from 10 years old friendship, which would be the breaking free for because they went to do their PhD, and when they went to do their PhD, they had to harm me, and I know it, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't know it, and I'm not going to pretend that it's not for espionage and that they're not to blame. Okay, they're not to blame in the sense that they were tortured, but they did take part in this. So I took a break from academia, but then I see it's everywhere around. And so, if they wondered why I was not with them or something like that, or not more than friends or something like that, well, if you have to do this, then you wouldn't, even if you would do it to somebody else, not me, okay? You would have to take drugs, you would have to use alcohol, you would have to dissociate. I would have to live with the fact that that's what you've done. I would always have to worry about our children. You would always have to worry about betrayal, so would I. Okay? Um, Non-monogamy is the beginning of things. Okay, especially if a person says, if somebody will cheat with me, I'm afraid I will murder her. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm monogam. So, okay. Thank you, but no thank you. We stay friends. But the thing is, that of course did not work. But the thing is that um, if you don't make something of yourself, then you're grumpy and you're angry and you're bitter, and then you go to the bitter, okay, you go to the alcohol, to the this, to the that, to do something about the fact that you don't do something with yourself. You do something with yourself, then you to succeed, to keep it up in the business, they want you to do those things that would take you to that place again. And it's the damn if you do, damn if you don't. And so we think about, what about all these men? Weren't they good men? All of them were excellent men. But at the same time, as long as it's the damned if you do, damned if you don't, then no man can be a good man. And no woman can be a good partner. And so we bump into each other, sparking sparks, and Uranus has a great role in those sparks. Uranus has a gigantic role in those sparks, okay? Because Uranus is like where you haven't been, where you haven't been fully expressing your truth or fully exposed to your truth or fully liberated, you're going to run into that unusual love affair or unusual love interest um, that is almost fated. And you're like, what do I find in, like, what do I find, wait, what? And then the minute you don't even finish the sentence, like, what do you mean, what do I find? This person is this spark of my life. um, and as an astrologer, people usually had couples that she was married, he was married, both left their marriage and called me like, are we twin flames? And I'm like, well, what did this relationship bring in your life other than you two wondering about this question? Well, I began to paint, he began to dance, he began so he began to make music, I began to do this. Yeah, that's that's what it's supposed to be about. That's what it's supposed to be about. But then there would always come, if it's not your natal transits, then there would always come this juxtaposition, okay, that sparks up your life and and stirs up for the questions, and you tend to the thing, you tend to your truth. That's basically your life energy. Uranus also rules suicide, by the way. And it's the steering of the pot, because this is this is something that is true on a community level, and Uranus usually defies the community. Um, we will not be able to solve cold cases with, okay, everybody knows that was satanic abuse, but the entire town is involved with those things. Everybody knows. And it's not about moving to another town, it's another sect. And the shine in the eyes will not return for a prolonged way. And I'm talking about the shine of love. There's no replacement to that. There's no replacement to that. There's no alcohol, no drinks, no drugs. There's no replacement to that. And when we talk about eroticism, it has a role and it has the spark of our truth. So if you have entire community where only men make decisions, I'm sorry, woman, there's going to be that sedna. And so, no man is good enough for you. Well, if we don't do something about this community, then no man will be able to be a man. And then no woman will be able to be a woman. And you see what happens to the children. And the children, nobody came to save, they're your leaders. This is also part of the Sedna story. The shamans have to appease Sedna for food. Your leaders are the ones who decide how will the budget be allocated. And if your leaders lived in a world where I was listening to the podcast of Anneke Lucas, and she was interviewing a woman that came from MK Ultra Mormon Society, and one of the rituals was that they were slaughtering a kid, but before that they asked for everybody to pray for the kid and see if the children managed to save the kid with prayer. Then they slaughtered the kid, and then they said, "No, Lucifer will redeem you." And because that woman was rebellious, then they tried especially to try to make her conform, and they would rape. They would try to get people dissociated. Until people would get to the point of where they want them to be insecure or with this or with that. And this was considered upbringing, good parenting. And they would play games, and then for the suddenly there would be violence, and that would consider game. And the people that nobody came to save is our leaders. So that's how our leaders grew up. That's the tender part, okay? Those are the people that now decide on the allocation of our resources. That's politics. Politics, one of the definitions for politics is when you have a situation of limited resources, okay, how do you slice the pie? That's politics. There was, yes, I think, there was complaint about, so short was complaint about Mark Rutte. It says all he has in his mind is how to get more money. It's like that's his job. He's supposed to recruit. If he's in NATO, he's supposed to recruit more money for NATO. Okay, if he's in the government, he's supposed, that's his job. Okay, all he wants to think about is how he spend other people's money. It's like that. If you spend it on you, it's not the problem, right? But you think about how these people were. What was their upbringing, and then. And then people say, well, the narcissist, they only this, they only that. Well, those people, or they're hypocrites, but those people grew up with a situation where everything was gaslighting since childhood. Nobody came to save them. Or the people that did, it was like, I would never grow my kids in that town. Then they go to the other town and slaughter another kid and then fuck him. And that's society.